There is only one problem with our culture, and many different people seem to point at the results of this one reason, but never actually point at the reason itself. Now, in my opinion, it may not be good for clicks, but it's most definitely good for true understanding. And now you may disagree, and we can get at it in the comment section below. But follow along with me in my philosophy, and let's get down to understanding the root of our cultural problems. The only problem in the Black community is that we don't control the distribution of our culture. Let me explain. If you haven't already, I suggest you watch my Dr. Umar response video here, where I talk about what culture is. As we proceed, I will assume you have already watched that video and understand everything that's in this one. But long story short, culture is to a people what blood is to a human body. And the regular definition of culture is the arts and other manifestations of human intellectual achievement regarded collectively, and the customs, art, social institutions, and achievements of a particular nation, people, or other social group. But what is media? The main means of mass communication. And what is its effects? And if we don't control the distribution of the media surrounding our culture, who does? And what are they communicating about our culture? And at what point does life start to imitate art? Let's break down hip-hop, for example. White people buy into hip-hop more than any other demographic. Hip-hop labels are owned by white and white Jewish execs. They promote self-destruction in the Black American community, and they don't want to promote Black positivity. They say it's what the culture wants, but we know who the real culture is. And then this becomes a way of escape for Black Americans and now Black immigrants to make it out of their predetermined economic squalor. But in order to seem as a real rapper, you got to have a couple of bodies on you, have done some pharmaceutical vending, or been a part of some sort of war in a set. This becomes the material and credibility that they then use in their raps, giving the culture or the audience exactly what they want. The destruction of the Black community for their entertainment. We now see the effects that media can have on a group of people and the effects that it can have on the image of a people. And what this shows is that media distributors have a lot of power. But how much power do media distributors hold? And who are these media distributors? Media distributors are like Warner Brothers Music Group, YouTube, Viacom, and social media platforms. These platforms make the executive decision of what to put out there as far as representing our culture. And these communications or programs program people to believe what they see, no matter what it is, as shown by the likes of people like Hitler. The power that these media distributors hold is the power to be able to control the image of people, which means to control how other people see them and treat them based on their perceived image. Like, how many times have you heard foreigners talk down on Black people and talk up about white people because of what they've seen in the media? Another power that these distributors have is that they have the power to define to those people what their own culture is. And this limits the level in which those people will be able to fully express themselves in their own way, which strips them of the power to define themselves. Like, how many times have you heard someone losing their Black card by doing something that's not perceived to be Black? Stuff like that. And they also have the power to alter the destiny of these people. By showing what their culture is, the next generation and even some of the current and older generations begin to believe what they see. altering their destiny in the way that was predetermined by this media. And this is why accurate representation matters. If the people that are portraying you are only portraying you as a minstrel show, then that's what you'll be socially viewed as. And that's what you will always aspire to be. Let's use white people as an example. White men are normally the hero, the ultimate, the generic, the lover, the alpha, omega, the default. And this often translates into how white men are seen with such reverence and respect in the world that they truly don't even deserve. All because they portray themselves to be the best thing since sliced bread in the media. And what this teaches us is that all media has an agenda. And if you ever pay attention to the great white replacement crowd, they always harp on anything other than a white male being the hero of a game or a movie being a problem. And if you want an example of that, you can watch my "If You Are Mad About Yasuke, You're a Racist" video. And what this shows is that white people know the significance of representation for other groups of people, which is why they only want people that either they can kind of cosplay as, or they only want to see the type of media of people that they agree with or that agree with them. And this alarms them because they know that if you can have a positive image in the media, it therefore justifies the way in which you are treated, or it will cause you to have to be treated with dignity and respect like they were. And I already know there are some people that would say, well, what about all the black shows that you guys produce? That's good enough power, isn't it? That's all you really need, right? Well, no, because there's a difference between production versus distribution. Just because we produce shows doesn't mean that they'll get picked up. Like, there's this popular guy that was on Instagram who was talking about how BET allegedly told him that his script was too complex for the viewers at BET and they wanted him to revamp it.
Do you ever wonder why it feels like all the shows Hollywood makes for black people are so basic? That's on purpose. A few years ago, I sold my first TV series to BET, and they even told the press that they were making 8 episodes of my show. But when we got into the development on my show, they told me it was too complex. They told me to make it more simple. They said we need simpler characters, simpler dialogue, simpler plot lines, simple, simple, simple. I wanted to keep the show complex. I thought we deserve complex storytelling. No. A couple months later, an executive pulled me aside and said, listen, kid, at this network, we make shows for single moms at home making dinner for their kids. They need to be able to follow your show without really paying attention. In other words, make it dumber. I couldn't do that. So a month later, I got a call from my agent. She said, BET's pulling out, they're not gonna make your show. I was heartbroken, but I learned an important lesson. Why would a company called Black Entertainment Television want to serve their own people undercooked nothing burgers? The answer is that the Black in BET is just a storefront. BET's owned by Paramount Global. And who runs Paramount Global? You know who.
The distributor turned down production of a show that would depict us in a better light. If you have no real means of a platform to get your work out there, you are at the behest of the platform. Like, no matter what food you may make and or have, with no store and with no marketing, you have nothing. And this tends to be the most expensive part of the media industry, leading to why we really need reparations in order to fund our own media operations and distribution. And then add in all the recent Black immigrant media persons sponsored by the distribution companies to perform these types of roles that should go to us and be written by us, to Black immigrants that don't understand our culture at best or is jealous of it at worst, showing a soft replacement of Black Americanness with Black immigrantness in order to use their help to denigrate our community even further, as most people won't question the lineage of a brown-skinned person like how we do, because we know that all skin folk ain't kinfolk. So the tie between media depictions of Black Americans through the lens of those that mean to oppress us and the cultural dysfunction that permeates throughout our community are really heavily linked, more so than is given credit for. People act on what they see in the media, be it true or not. And if not accurate, the results can be very daunting. There is even a conference that authors go to in order to make sure that they tell science the way it's really meant to be, because many people get their history and their knowledge from fiction. And so they would much rather look at TV than to get it from an actual history book or from any other form of education. So history or science, many people will get the understanding of these things from media, which shows why these people choose to go to these events in order to learn real science and real history. And there was an author by the name of Walter Mosley who had a quote saying, "If you don't exist in the literature of that country, your people do not exist." And this is very important as to why representation truly, truly matters. Because if not, then we can be manipulated to believe things that aren't necessarily true, and then therefore act on those things, helping to make America or the world a terrible place. And with the current effort to replace foundational Black Americanness with Black immigrantness, it kind of shows how people can be wiped out using representation in media. Almost kind of like someone back in World War II, Nazi Germany. And always remember that duality and balance are the keys to life. Peace.